What's up, Element? For those of you who don't know me, my name is Allie, and our whole goal of Element is to make you feel known, valued, and loved. And we do that by sharing the message and hope of Jesus. Now, before I get into it, I'm going to tell you guys a little bit of story, but you need some background. Okay, first of all, I grew up in a small town. Second of all, it was at the end of COVID. Okay, so I already had nothing to do in my small town, and COVID made everything I did have to do, which was like two things, closed. Which was just, I had nothing else to do. And it was my sophomore year, and so I just got my license, all of my friends got their license, and so when we had nothing to do and we were finally allowed to hang out with each other, we just drove around for fun because gas was cheap, which was so nice. So we would just fill up our cars, trucks, and we would blast music, hang out, talk, and we would just drive around these dirt roads. And we became very familiar with the dirt roads in our area. And we'd go down these things called MMRs. For those of you who don't know what that is, MMRs are minimum maintenance roads. And like it says in the title, minimum maintenance. Nobody takes care of them. They're just paths that like farmers or people who own that property usually have drove up and down so many times that it leaves a little dirt path. But we knew which ones were safe to go down, which ones you'd probably get stuck on, which ones you shouldn't go down. Like we knew these things because we travel them so much. So anyways, I'm going to hang out with my friends and we're like, okay, let's go drive around. We go down this one MMR that we're really familiar with. And it comes to a split in the road. The only problem with this is the night before it had rained a lot. So we get to the split, we look at our options and we're like, oh golly. There's a wide option, which is the one we'd usually take, but that one is just full of water and mud. And there's a dirt wall to the side of it that makes it very hard to like steer. Like you can't really get out of it very easily. Then there's a narrow one, and that one is not as muddy. So we're like, oh, that's probably a better option. And the dirt wall next to it is a lot lower, so you can kind of, move a little bit better. So as we get to the split in the road, we just so happen to see two trucks in front of us that are parked, and we get a call. We just so happen to know those people, which might also be a small town thing, I'm not sure. And they're like, hey, you guys need to go down this wide path. Like, you need to go down this right path. Like, I promise it'll be good. And we did just that. We were like, oh, we're probably gonna get stuck, and we know we should have taken the left way, the narrow one, but our friends think we should do this, so we're gonna do it. Probably not our best idea, but we back up, and we're like, okay, like we have to gain speed if we don't wanna get stuck. So we back up, and we start going, we start gaining speed, and we hit the mud puddle deeper than we expected, and I feel our tires start spinning, and we're not moving. And I was like, great. So I try to get out, and I can't even open my door. And I roll down my window, and I realize the ground is parallel with my window. So I have to step out of the window, and it's parallel with the ground. And our friends were like, oh, we'll be really good friends, and I'll help pull you out. Like, you're the reason we're stuck in the first place, but they were great friends, helped get us out. Now, why am I telling you this? Probably not to this extent, but maybe. But I guarantee there are so many times in your life, and even day to day, where you do things that you know are wrong because you know it'll make your friends laugh, or you know it'll help you fit in, or you know that it'll make them like you a little bit more, so you do it anyways. One example of this is all of my friends were getting mullets, so I got one. Was that the best idea? Probably not. You probably shouldn't have got a mullet, but your friends were doing it, so you thought you needed to as well. I don't think we purposely choose the wrong paths in life. Sometimes I think it just sweeps us up and catches us. I think it's because we're so focused on fitting in and making other people happy that we just start doing the wrong things because our friends are. Like, it seems so normal because the people around us are doing it, so we just think we should do it too. So we fit in a little bit better. And I think Jesus is talking about this in Matthew 7, about these two paths that we have in life. He says, enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate, and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate, and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few who find it. Okay, I'm going to kind of shorten it up. He says, 1, there's a wide gate, has a really broad road, but it leads to destruction, and there are many people on this road. The second one he says is, there's a narrow gate with a small road. Only a few people are on it, it's hard to find, but that one leads to life. And before he even starts talking about those roads, he's like, enter through the narrow gate. And it's like, Jesus loves us so much, he's like, I don't even want to give you the options. Like, there's a clear right answer. He's like, enter through the narrow gate because it will give you life. Now, I'm going to give you guys a little history lesson. We'll do a little history with Allie. But at the time Jesus was preaching this, there were no cars. I know, crazy. People had to walk everywhere. when they wanted to get somewhere. So imagine having to walk every single day to school or every day to work or every time to go to the grocery store or to hang out with your friends. They had to walk everywhere. So around this town, there were just little dirt paths that people would follow. If you wanted to go internationally, though, these dirt paths would get wider because there was always people walking on it. There was more people. And you'd see like animals being hauled up and down this and carts carrying people's belongings and armies walking up and down this. So the roads in town were probably a couple feet wide, while the international roads were like 15 feet wide. So there's like, the narrow road and the wide road. Now, why is he bringing this up? Because at the time, only the Jews believed in the true God. So the God we worship, only the Jews believed in him. So when they were in their area, it was super easy to just keep following God and to do the right thing. But when they traveled internationally and were surrounded by people who didn't know God, they lost sight of him. They were so focused on fitting in with the rest of the world that worshipped false idols or believed in different gods, worshipped multiple gods. They were so focused about fitting in with them that they lost sight of Jesus. They lost their purpose. Now, what does this have to do with us today? No, we're probably not going to be walking internationally or walking place to place, but we make the decision every day on who we're going to surround ourselves with. Are we going to surround ourselves with people who don't believe in God, who don't actually follow Jesus or worship Jesus? And are we going to start focusing on making them happy and trying to fit in with them and doing what they're doing? Or are we going to surround ourselves with people who worship God, who love God, who believe in God, and start acting like them? You've probably heard it so many times, but you become the people you surround yourself with. You become your closest friends. So when you're making that decision, you have to be cautious of, am I going to lose sight of God being around these people? And I'm going to be so worried about fitting in with the rest of the world, fitting in with the people at my school, fitting in with my family, or am I going to worry more about fitting in with Jesus, becoming more like Jesus? And it's such a hard concept, but I feel like if Jesus were here, he'd be like, guys, why do you think you can make everybody happy? I was perfect and I couldn't even do that. People hated me to the point of death because I was different. You guys are humans. We mess up all the time. So why do we think we can make everybody happy? Why do we think we could fit in with all these people? We have to be okay with being different. We have to be okay with following Jesus and trying to act more like Jesus. We have to make that decision in our lives, okay? Am I going to worry more about fitting in with the world, about doing what my friends tell me to do, about going down that wide path, getting stuck because I'm so focused on the worldly things? Or am I going to choose the path of Jesus? Am I going to try to act more and more like him? I feel like the world we live in today tells us that there's thousands of paths that we can enter. So if you do this activity, you're in this path. If you do this one, you're in this path. If you hang out with these people, you're going down this path. If you believe in this, you're going down this path. But Jesus tells us no, there's only two paths. And that's because you either are rejecting Jesus or you're accepting Jesus. There's two paths because there's only two different ways of life, and they both lend to two different endings. So he starts with saying, okay, here's the wide path. There's so many people on it, really easy to go on, but this one leads to destruction. It leads to hurt, it leads to pain, it leads to death. Now there's a second path. This is the narrow path, and Jesus is choose this one because only a few people find it, but it leads to life. It's hard, but Jesus is hey, I promise you that I will give you life if you just continue to choose me and follow me. If you choose him over the world, he's no, I will give you guys eternal life, I promise. Okay, we're going to start by talking about this wide path, and we're going to call this one the world. And this one's, first of all, easy because we're born on this road. We're surrounded by people on this road, and all the worldly desires are on this road, so it looks a lot better. I first imagine it imagine streets, and just on the sides of it is everything that you can imagine. So a nice car, a nice house, lots of money, maybe your sports, whatever you imagine on this wide road is just aligned with it. You're oh, that will bring me happiness. And on the sides of it, there's street signs, and it'd be come as you are, no need to change, believe whatever you want, do whatever you want, which sounds amazing. Oh yeah, I want to do whatever I want. I want to just keep doing what I'm doing. I want to fit in with my friends. The only problem about that is just like, no, that leads to destruction. And we know that because we live in a world that does what they want, and that's why we are hurt so much, and that's why we're in so much pain, and it leads to death. The other reason this road is so easy is because there's no requirements. You don't have to pay to get in. You can just keep walking on it. And it's easy to just get swept into because almost everybody around you is on this path. It's a wide path with many, many, many people on it. So if you start focusing on being more like the world and fitting in with your friends, you're going to fit in with the world and you're going to be like your friends on this wide path. And you're going to start going down that road of destruction. But he also says that it leads to destruction, it leads to hurt, it leads to pain. And then he's like, but there's also a narrow path. And this narrow path we're going to call Christ. And this path is hard to find. You have to be intentional with seeking it out. So it's like, my friends are telling me to do this, and I know it's wrong, and like, they make it seem normal, but in my heart I know it's wrong. So I'm going to choose to be more like Jesus. So you have to be seeking it out. If you don't seek it out and you just keep walking with the ways of the world, you're never going to find it. You have to be intentionally like, I'm going to try to find Jesus. I'm going to seek Jesus in this. So you have to first be intentional. Second thing is this road you have to pay to get in. Not with physical money, but it's like you have to pay with your beliefs, with your faith. You have to pay with a relationship with like Jesus. You have to believe a relationship with Christ. It comes with a payment of change. So it's like, yeah, I'm going to turn away from my former life. I'm going to stop trying to sin. I'm going to stop doing that evil that all of my friends are doing, that all my friends are trying to make me do, and I'm going to choose Jesus instead. And this road is so hard because Jesus is like, no, it's too narrow for both your will and my will to go. It's too narrow for your will and Jesus' will to fit in there. So you have to pick one or the other. Only Jesus' will can fit through this narrow gate. So if you're not ready to set yours down, you're ending up on this wide road. So now, here's my question is, are you being intentional with Jesus? Are you willing to pay the price of him and start changing your ways to fit in with him? Or are you going to be more focused on fitting in with the world and trying to follow the people of the world? Because that wide path, it has so many people on it, and it's so easy to get swept up in. Like, all of the people that you look up to, so imagine like celebrities, influencers, actors, celebrities, like all of these people are on that road. And it also has people you love on that road. Some of your families, your friends, some people in the room next to you are on this wide road. You have to be willing to make that decision. Am I okay being different from them? Am I okay to be apart from them, to look more like Jesus? It's hard, but you have to make that decision to follow Jesus, to follow the ways of the world. I think it's so easy to get caught up in the ways of the world because we start caring so much about what people think of us. We care so much about making others happy and making sure that we fit in. And when we do that, we lose sight of Jesus. Like, we focus so much on the people in this world that we forget our purpose in Jesus' kingdom. And when I was your guys' age, I was always like, yeah, when I get closer to death, then I'll make this decision to go on that narrow path. But like, right now, I'm just going to continue to fit in. Like, I don't want to be alone in high school, and I don't want people to not like me, and I don't want to not have friends. So I'm just going to keep walking the ways of this world. But Jesus is saying, every time you make a decision, you're either accepting me or you're rejecting me. You're getting further down the wider road or down the narrow road. And so you have to make that decision now, because if you keep going, you're going to keep getting more lost. If you're going down this wide road, you're going to lose sight of Jesus. So you have to be cautious. Who are you bringing into your life? Who are you letting influence you? Are you making your decisions based on what your friends want, what your family wants? Or are you making decisions based on what Jesus wants for you? There also might be some of you that are like, yeah, I believe in Jesus. Like, I read my Bible sometimes and I pray sometimes. And I'm here right now. Like, I go to Element and I go to church sometimes on Wednesdays. And I'm so glad you're here. I'm glad that you're expanding your faith. But what does your life look like outside of Element, outside of a Wednesday night? What does it look like when you're at school? What does it look like when you're at home with your families? What does it look like on a Friday or a Saturday night? Does it look like Jesus, or does it look like the world? Do you act like the rest of the world? Do you look like the rest of the world? Do you talk like the rest of the world? Do you have the same morals as the rest of the world? Or do you talk and act and look like Jesus? And I'm going to give you guys a little bit of hope, because this concept was so hard for me. I was like, yeah, it's really hard right now. But Jesus says, I've told you these things so you may have peace. In this world, you'll have trouble, but take heart. I've overcome the world. He's saying, guys, I died for you so you don't have to be alone. I died on the cross so you can have peace, and I can lead you to life. So you don't have to be afraid of fitting in with the world. You don't have to be afraid of making other people happy. Just focus on going towards me. Focus on me, and I will give you life. But the world, that's going to lead to destruction. That's going to lead to death. So where's your focus at? Okay, now I want you to take a little bit of time just reflecting. Which path are you truly on? Because I bet there's some of you that are like, yeah, I'm kind of in the middle. Yeah, I believe in Jesus, but I also really care what people think of me. So I'm just here's the two rows. I'm just going to stay in the middle. I'll pay attention to Jesus when I'm alone and when I'm at church on Wednesday nights and Sundays. But when I'm at school, I'm going to fit in with my friends. And on the weekends, I'm going to fit in with my friends. But Jesus is no, that's not an option. There's two ways. You either accept me or you reject me. And so you have to know, if you're not intentionally focusing on Jesus, you're probably more focused on the ways of the world, and you're traveling that path. You're traveling the path to death, to destruction, to pain, to hurt. So which are you going to focus on? You're going to focus on fitting in with your friends and your families and doing what they want? You're going to focus on fitting in with Jesus and doing what Jesus wants for your life. And I'm going to challenge you this week. What does your life look like outside of a Wednesday night? Do you look like the rest of the world, or do you look like Jesus?